right, it's a bright and sunny day, as you can see, and I'm here at the Columbia School of Journalism, and with me are two bright and young students of journalism, Pauline and Megha. Thank you so much for joining us over here, girls. Pauline, now that Donald Trump is set to return to the White House, what are you expecting from his presidency a second time around?
A lot of us are worried, but, well, we're expecting a lot of change for sure. Reproductive rights are a challenge now. We live in the city, so we're pretty much privileged at this point, but I think we're worried about our reproductive rights being, challenged, as I said. And foreign policies as well. I am an international student. I am very scared about the international repercussions of what's going to happen. I'm from Europe, so market-wise, but also immigration-wise, I think we're pretty much worried. Yeah.
Megha, are you also as worried as Pauline is? What are your concerns?
Yeah, I would say very worried about a lot of the policies, especially from the rhetoric on his campaign, both him and the Vice President-elect J.D. Vance. We've seen reproductive access. His Project 2025 plans have promised to ban the shipment of abortion medication. We've seen how he's supported in the past national abortion bans at 15 weeks, national abortion bans after 20 weeks. Immigration-wise, he's promised the largest deportation in America's history, so much so that we've seen mass deportation chants at all of his rallies. He's promised to go back on all of his immigration changes that he initiated during his first presidency in 2016.
Several supporters of Donald Trump say that he'll be putting an end to the wars, as he's claimed himself. Do you believe that he'll be able to end a war which is now only spilling over in Middle East, especially the one that Israel's waging against Gaza and what we are seeing happen in Lebanon? Also, not to forget the crisis in Ukraine as well.
Absolutely not. I don't believe he's going to stop anything. I believe, if possible, things will get worse. We know that Netanyahu is a big fan of Donald Trump and vice versa. I believe Trump will be funding Israel even more than the U.S. already does, and I think that's very worrying.
All right. Megha, what is your view, especially when it comes to the Indian American support? What has been your understanding of the Indian American support and the demographic shift that we've seen now from the Democrats? It's now leaning towards the Republicans.
Yeah, so I will say we saw a 4% shift in Asian American votes nationally that leaned right. He gained 4%, Harris lost 5%. We've seen that at the national level. More locally, we've seen a lot of shift in the Asian American dynamic, particularly in Indian American communities here just in New York.
Why so?
I think a lot of it has to do with the rhetoric and his immigration status, his immigration policies that he's promoted. So this idea of promoting mass deportations, this idea of shutting down the border, a lot of immigrants, Indian American immigrants, Asian immigrants who are in this country have this belief, from what I've seen, that they don't want these new immigration policies from the previous administration to be.
All right, there's been an interesting observation that the vote share for Donald Trump in New York City has in fact risen. What explains that in your point of view? Because remember, New York City for decades has been a Democratic stronghold.
Yeah, New York is a blue state, but there has been a red wave in the latest elections. We have studied that in our politics class that we have together. There is this red wave happening in a lot of boroughs. I'm thinking Queens, I'm thinking even in some parts of Brooklyn. So, and especially in places where, there are a lot of Latino voters, they have gone very red. So that's a change.
And that's a change we've been discussing all throughout, that why have immigrants, in fact, voted for him despite the vitriolic rhetoric coming out of the campaigns. But what explains this red wave in the state of New York, Megha, in your view?
So I will say, I think because we've seen a large shift in immigration policy here in the city with Mayor Adams, we've had a lot of asylum seekers come into the city, and we've had a lot of anger over their stay and their welcome into the city, despite all the policies that the mayor's office has initiated, there's been a lot of anger from immigrant communities in the cities, and that is where we're kind of seeing that red shift is in prominent immigrant communities in Queens, in Asian American neighborhoods, in Flushing.
My last question, how do you in fact speak to concerns about the United States being a misogynist country, because this is the second time a female Democrat presidential candidate has lost, that to Donald Trump?
I think, the fact that a female lost against Trump both times is, it speaks for itself, but it's also the fact that Trump is openly misogynistic. The fact that he openly, I'm gonna say it, hates women, wants to reduce our rights. I believe, yes, there is a wave of misogyny coming from the U.S. And also from its voters, not only from Trump. Honestly, a lot of people apparently agree with that, or at least that's not a deal breaker for them.
But I think policy played a bigger issue, as we've seen from a lot of his base and a lot of the voters who did support him from our side.
I don't think Harris lost because she was a woman.
I agree. I don't think she lost solely based off a woman, because she was a woman. While I do think there is a lot of underlying misogyny radiating from his base, policy played a more important role in this election.